This is video 4.2 on triangle congruence. And for triangles to be congruent, there's two things that must be true. You must have corresponding angles congruent. All the corresponding angles must be congruent. And we can see that they're congruent in this one because we have one tick mark and one tick mark, which says AB is congruent to EF, and so forth for the other two sides. You must also have corresponding sides congruent, which is what I just said. Let's go look at the angles. Here we can see angle A is congruent to angle F because it has one tick mark, and angle B is congruent to angle E because they have two curves there showing that they're congruent. If this is true, then you can say that the two triangles are congruent. And down here there's three different ways to say it, depending on which order you tend to say those vertices in. So triangle BCA is congruent to triangle EFD, and so forth. Just mixing the order on those. But you have to be consistent on the order. But so it's likely that many of you will have different answers when you answer those kind of questions. Going to the next problem. In this diagram, you'll see quadrilateral ABCD is congruent to FGHK. So that tells me corresponding angles are congruent and corresponding sides are congruent. So from that, I can say the corresponding side, this side AB, is going to be congruent to side GH. And that's what we did over here. We have 3x minus 6 is congruent, equal to 9, and they're able to solve for x getting 5. With that, let's look at the corresponding angles are congruent. So angle D is congruent to angle K. And from that, they were able to write 4x plus 2y equals 44. And as you've seen, we previously solved for x and got 5, so they substitute that in there, and they're able to solve for y with some simple algebra there and get y equal to 12. So once again, corresponding triangle and congruent triangles, corresponding parts are congruent. Congruent quadrilaterals, corresponding parts are also congruent. Continuing on to the next slide here. Maggie took a piece of fabric, it looks like it's a rectangle, and she cut it diagonally. And she's going to make two scarves, one for herself and one for her friend. Remember, the question is, are they the same size and shape? Which means, are they congruent? That's the question. Well, the angles and the sides must be congruent for the triangles to be congruent. So we can see that VS is congruent to TU. That's the first thing here. We can see TS is congruent to VU. That would be the second thing. And we can see that SU is congruent to SU because they are reflexive. They're the same side. They share that side. Now let's check the angles. Well, we have angle V is congruent to angle T because they're right angles. We have angle, we have, in a rectangle, we have parallel sides, don't we? Therefore, we can say that we have alternate interior angles are congruent. So angle 2 is congruent to angle 3 by alternate interior angles. And we can do that again, except using TU and SV, our parallel sides. We can say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 4 by alternate interior angles again. And therefore, the two triangles are congruent and they have the same size scarf. Next problem. In this one, let's see. We have a funny looking shape that's kind of made out of two big triangles here. And we're supposed to find measure of YXW. YXW, where is that? YXW. This angle. To do that, we're going to have to find that piece, huh? Or we could find that whole angle there. And so what happened is, because these angles here are labeled as congruent, we can draw the two triangles, and we have 35 degrees in those two corners because one's 35, the other must be 35. Well, we got 35 and 40 down here, and now we can find the missing YXW by using supplementary, or the sum of those interior angles is 180, getting it to equal to 105. And we could find other angles in there based on that. But the third angle theorem says if you know two angles are congruent, the third one must be congruent because they all sum to 180. I'm going to go ahead and stop here and go to the next video, B.